All right, big-time Democratic donor Ed Buck is behind bars today, charged with felony counts of causing serious injury to people and running a drug den. This as a third man OD'd at his home in West Hollywood from meth. That man, though, survived. But the DA is accusing Buck of injecting the victim with a potentially deadly dose. So for more on this curious case of the millionaire donor, let's talk to investigative journalist Ben Swann. So Ben, two men, 2 years have died at Buck's apartment. This guy survived the OD. Why did it take this to finally arrest this man?
Yeah, it's incredibly unfortunate and very sad that it has taken this long for this arrest to be made. But I think the reason we're seeing this is because consider the fact that Ed Buck, as you mentioned, did have 2 other men who have died in his home, which that alone is staggering, absolutely shocking. 2 men who died in his home of drug overdoses in the past. The last man, after this happened, who had this overdose, the attorneys for Buck claimed that he had actually OD'd someplace else and then drove to Buck's home. The DA didn't do a whole lot then, but there were a lot of questions around it. And then came protests. There were protests that were held after this last incident in which activists went to Ed Buck's home and demanded that he be arrested. And what they claimed was this, that Ed Buck is preying on typically homeless black men, many times who are prostitutes. He brings them to his home, and he seems to, that's according to reports on the subject and police, they say that he gives them overdoses of crystal meth as part of some kind of fetish that he has, and he has those overdoses have led to 2 deaths.
Yeah.
So this latest case, I think, because we saw protesters the last time, has caused the DA to say, oh my gosh, this happened a 3rd time. We have to charge this guy, especially in light of everything that's going on in the climate right now.
And Ben, we don't know much about this latest victim, the survivor, but the 2 men who died, as you mentioned, were both known to be homeless. They were known to have drug addictions. Talk a little bit more about this exploitation here, because the community in West Hollywood says that Buck was known, as you mentioned, to prey on specifically black younger men who are essentially down and out, down on their luck, and they all say that he's exploiting them for, like you said, this weird sick depravity that he has. It's a fetish.
Yeah, we don't even fully understand even the context of all of that. But here's what's so fascinating about it is that Ed Buck is a very prominent Democratic donor. This is important too. He has made very large contributions to presidential campaigns, held major fundraisers. He is very involved in state politics and in giving money to, members of California's congressional delegation. He's very involved there. So that's very important because it insulates him, and this is what activists have been saying, that it insulates him from prosecution. It's been protecting him, similar to another guy by the name of Jeffrey Epstein, who we've talked a lot about, who seemed to do the same thing and insulated himself. But I want to read to you something, because there was a diary that was left behind by this guy named Jamel Moore, who was one of the victims who ultimately died. And in that diary, he talked about the fact that Ed Buck, he says, quote, "I have become addicted to drugs, and the worst one at that." He wrote this in his diary. He says, "Ed Buck is the one to thank. He gave me my first injection of crystal meth." This Jamel Moore, who died of an overdose, wrote in his diary that he became addicted because Ed Buck injected him. Ed Buck, according to him in this diary, was the one who led him to this not only life of addiction, but ultimately his death. How do you allow somebody like this to continue to do this? And I think this is why the district attorney in LA has now had him arrested and is saying, okay, we've got to charge him with something. We have to prosecute him, because otherwise I think activists in LA are going to lose their minds.
It's going to look bad on the part of the DA if they don't charge him. So like you said, this is all coming on the heels of all this Jeffrey Epstein stuff, all this weird stuff surrounding that case. It's another case of a rich, powerful man. We know with Epstein back in 2008 managed to secure this sweetheart deal where he got a slap on the wrist even after being a convicted pedophile. Buck also connected to powerful politicians. He's donated a ton of money to various politicians, both on the local level and on the national level. Do you suspect that Buck might be treated similarly to Epstein? I mean, he's got $20,000 just in one pack alone. State representative, or excuse me, California Congressman Ted Lieu, he's received $16,000. House Majority PAC, $5,000 there. Hillary Clinton, several thousands for her. Is he going to get a slap on the wrist because he keeps giving all these people money?
So here's what's interesting about that is how much of a slap can you give in this era right now that we're in right now? The Me Too movement combined with what's happened with Jeffrey Epstein, over and over we are seeing a pushback against powerful, well-connected people who you could argue in many cases have risen to their level of power and influence and insulation specifically for this reason. Right? You become so powerful and insulated so that you can prey upon people with impunity. That's how it appears to so many people on the outside of it. And I believe that is the case, that these guys protect themselves this way. But the question becomes this: what actually will he be charged with? If he's being charged with in the deaths of two men who overdosed in his house, that's one thing, but he's not being charged with that. He's being charged with having drugs with him and being involved in an overdose of someone who did not die. That alone becomes suspicious. Why are you going to charge him with now a much lesser crime in the death of, oh, excuse me, not the death, in the overdose of someone who survived, who's 37 years old, but not in the death of two other people? So already the way that the charges are being brought, I would say that's already a sweetheart deal.
Wow. Yeah. Good thing you're pointing that out, because it is a lighter charge, and it also helps the DA look like, you know, they're doing something about it.
You're doing something. That's right.
The optics help. Ben Swann, as always, appreciate your insight on this.
Manila, thank you.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.